Good evening, I'm Talia Ricci. We begin with some good news for GO Transit commuters. Metrolink says the Hamilton and Milton lines will be resuming service tomorrow morning. According to Metrolinx, there will be some adjustments to schedules throughout the day tomorrow as they work to restore service. Service at Hamilton Station and the Milton line were suspended last week due to work stoppages at Canada's two biggest railways. Yesterday, the Federal Labour Board imposed binding arbitration between the companies and unionized employees. The Minister of Labour saying today he's confident that those trains will be rolling tomorrow.
We're obviously heavily reliant on that infrastructure and heavily reliant on investments and better service from our railways, and that's what we're going to continue to look for. Yeah, we expect that railway workers and the railways themselves will restart operations. In fact, my information is that that process is significantly underway.
A Toronto police officer is recovering in hospital tonight after being struck by a motorcyclist Saturday evening.
A motorcycle was spotted near Lakeshore and Reese, stunt driving. One of our officers attempted to stop this vehicle at approximately 6 p.m. when they were struck by this motorcycle. The motorcyclist then failed to remain and fled the scene.
The officer was rushed to hospital with serious injuries but is expected to survive. Police are looking for the suspect, who's described as a man wearing a green helmet with a green and blue shirt and red gloves. Anyone with information is asked to contact police. One of Toronto's first safe injection sites is slated to close. A condo development is set to take its place. Advocates say closing the centre could have deadly repercussions. Brittany Billette reports.
Brian Clark has been sober for a year now. He credits Moss Park Overdose Prevention Services staff for saving his life long enough to make it into rehab.
I would have been dead already if it wasn't for Sarah and her team. I would have been gone. I would have not been able to be standing here, right, with bright eyes, and just telling you that it works.
Moss Park OPS first started operating inside a tent nearly 8 years ago, an unsanctioned supervised injection site launched in response to a spate of overdose deaths amid Ontario's growing opioid crisis.
We just got to a point where we said we cannot wait any longer, and all of this, hemming and hawing and bureaucracy and paperwork is just not necessary. Like, we know what we need to do. We know how to do it. We know that the evidence says that these sites are cost effective and they save lives.
Eventually, the site moved indoors with government funding. Every year since, it's reversed hundreds of overdoses and has connected people to health and social services, including addiction treatment.
And what we witness is transformative because it's genuine, authentic care.
But now it's only a matter of time until it closes. A 516-unit condo is planned to be built where it stands.
It's not a shock. It seems like everything in the city is turning into a condo.
And the neighborhood will also change further. The Ontario Line's Moss Park Station will eventually be built.
I'm not surprised because of the gentrification that's happening in the neighborhood, but I am really concerned in terms of not knowing where people are going to go for access to supports.
Many site users say they don't know what they'll do without the center.
If this place goes, I'm going to be a mess. I'm not going to have a chance because this is my family.
Nurses who work there say the grief they feel is compounded because at the same time, the Ford government is seeking to close some supervised consumption sites.
It's really devastating to feel like we're back at square one.
The province wants to ban sites within 200 meters of schools and childcare centers. It would also prohibit new sites from having safer supply initiatives.
The status quo of drug consumption sites is not working.
The government says its focus now is on creating treatment and recovery centers. The province is investing $378 million to create 19 so-called heart hubs, but advocates say the funds won't make a dent and the plan isn't robust enough.
It's just a complete waste of time and money, and the whole thing is going to kill people.
For now, it's unclear whether Moss Park OPS will be able to reopen in a new location. That seems to largely depend on whether the government gives them a new operating license. But even if it does receive one, what's certain is that the services it provides won't be the same. Brittany Billette, CBC News, Toronto.
Dozens gathered today to remember a man who dedicated his work to ending gun violence in Toronto. A celebration of life was held this afternoon for Louis March, the founder of the Zero Gun Violence movement. March died 2 months ago. His life of service inspired many to bring change into the city. Anam Khan reports.
Remembering a man whose dedication to community safety and justice in Toronto left a lasting impact. Community members thinking of him as a family member.
He was everybody's brother, uncle, father figure, and friend. There wasn't no one that he turned away.
About 150 people gathered in Toronto for a celebration of life for Louis March, honoring his legacy. The founder of the Zero Gun Violence movement died 2 months ago after a brief illness. He was known for his tireless work to address gun violence and support youth in the city for 4 decades. Today, people reflecting on the positive change he inspired.
But he's also left a legacy of going out into the community and talking to people, especially youth, and bringing them to places like ACHA when he was with us to give them the kind of information they were looking for.
How you doing? The African Canadian Heritage Association, which March was a part of, saying he worked around the clock, making sure people were connected to the resources they need.
Even with the Zero Gun Violence work, he was still funneling people to ACHA because he realized they needed something else about their culture, their heritage, to raise their self-esteem.
His son remembering the personal moments.
Everyone paints the picture that he's this big person, but to everybody else, yes, but to me, it's just dad. Hey, Dad, let's go do this. Hey, Dad, do you want to watch the Raptors game? Hey, Dad, let's do whatever.
His mother still coping with the sudden loss.
His birthday was 2 days after. But I will miss him, but I have to deal with it. I'm trying hard.
While March's work may have finished, his mission remains alive in the hearts he inspired.
And so we all have to come together with our pieces of the puzzle, and that's what we're missing right now, and that's what we need to do.
Advocates say March started the Zero Gun Violence movement as a 90-day project in 2013. Now, 11 years later, its impact continues to be felt across the city. Those close to him saying his vision for a safer Toronto is far from over. Anam Khan, CBC News, Toronto.
Justin Trudeau and his cabinet are in Halifax, where they've kicked off a 3-day retreat. They say focus will be domestic economic issues and U.S. relations, but they're also facing questions about Trudeau's leadership. Today, the housing minister expressed his support.
I see decisions to remove the interest on the Canada student loans. I see during people's time of need during the pandemic, a government, a prime minister who was willing to stand up and be there for people when things were looking pretty bleak, not only at a household level, but for businesses that needed support as well. And I see someone who committed to important priorities around reconciliation and climate change, which continue to be important for me and my community. So from my perspective, I'm going to keep working alongside with him as a good partner for my community. And we'll look forward to continuing to support him in the next election.
That's Housing Minister Sean Fraser speaking today at the Liberal Cabinet Retreat in Halifax. Sophia Kambalia joins us now from the Weather Network for a first look at the forecast, and what a beautiful sunny Sunday.
Natalia, thank you. Yeah, it was the picture-perfect Sunday, one of the last few Sundays of summer vacation, unfortunately, but fear not, the summer weather is far from over. In fact, the heat is really going to get turned up in this upcoming week ahead into the overnight period. Quick heads up, anybody Sarnia to Windsor stretch could see some storms, especially that 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. mark, but then really the first half of this work week is fairly easy breezy and clear when it comes to active weather. The one exception is the fact that some storms could come over tomorrow afternoon north of the Nickel Belt from the Minnesota area, so you could see some active weather there. But otherwise, the real story in southern Ontario is the sticky and steamy humidity that will make the feels like values feel into the low 40s and mid 30s for really the first half of this work week until this cold front comes in Tuesday into Wednesday and finally wrings out the atmosphere. Tons of sunshine between now and then, but here's a look at what Wednesday could look like and how it could play out. Heavy rain pre heat on Wednesday. There's a good possibility of that, and a good possibility that we could have some storms all along the 401 corridor when that daytime heating really kicks in. Now, coming up in the long range, I'll have more on the steamy temperatures. Here's a quick look at Monday before I let you go. Feels like 43 in Thunder Bay, like 39 in Windsor, and like 35 in Ottawa. Talia.
Thanks, Sophia. Well, it's that time of the year again. Back to school is just around the corner. And today was a big one for students and parents as TMU hosted their annual Move-In Day.
I feel like I just graduated high school and I feel like I'm still like so little, so to be here is just, it's crazy. It's really a dream come true, to be honest.
It's a big milestone, so like living without parents, have to do everything yourself and figure it out. It's big.
I guess I'm like starting to like move forward in my life now after taking some time off, so I think it's just very important for like self-growth as well.
Over 1,000 students moved into the campus's 3 residences today. Volunteers helping families and students bring their belongings into their dorms as they begin the transition into campus life. Israel and Hezbollah traded attacks across Lebanon's border today in one of their largest confrontations since the Gaza crisis began. Katie Nicholson reports.
As sirens wailed, missiles arced over the Lebanon-Israeli border.
We felt really large explosions. We felt like an earthquake.
This Sunday morning volley of rockets, drones, and interceptions aimed at military targets, the largest between Hezbollah and Israel since the war in Gaza began. In Lebanon, at least 3 reported deaths. Israel says one of its soldiers was also killed. For Hezbollah, this was about retaliation, says its chief, after Israel killed one of its leaders in July during a strike inside Beirut. For its part, the Israeli military says its barrage was a preemptive maneuver to thwart a bigger attack from Hezbollah. After the smoke cleared, both got to claim a win.
By Israel saying we preemptively prevented a bigger attack, and Hezbollah saying we did our attack as planned, and Israel preemptive strike did not stop it, both sides can claim success and victory and move on.
Tensions continue to soar in the region, the U.S. keeping warships nearby just in case. On Sunday, still no breakthrough in the negotiations on the latest proposed ceasefire deal between Hamas and Israel. It was hoped the deal might calm the wider region.
And they have already said that. Iran said that. Hezbollah said that. If a ceasefire is reached and there is a cessation of hostilities in Gaza, they will automatically abide by that ceasefire.
It can't come soon enough for Gazans, now ordered to evacuate Al-Aqsa Hospital, one of the biggest still operating in Gaza. The sick, the wounded, among the thousands whose lives depend on a deal yet to be made. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Washington.
Hamas officials have left Gaza ceasefire talks in Cairo, again saying no deal is in sight. They say Israel is setting new conditions they cannot accept, including continued control of Gaza's Egyptian border. Gaza officials say Israel ordered a nearby area evacuated, indicating military activity was likely. People fleeing that district were on the move as well. Officials reported 71 deaths over the last day in Israeli strikes. German authorities say a 26-year-old man has turned himself in after a deadly stabbing rampage on Friday. Sam Sampson has the details.
As bells ring through a city in shock, this sign asks the question so many have. Why? Stunned, completely stunned, and with the thought, this can't be happening, says this woman. The stabbings happened at a festival in Germany, meant to celebrate diversity, now canceled early. 2 men and a woman in their 50s and 60s are dead, 8 others wounded. Officials say a 26-year-old Syrian man turned himself in to police Saturday and confessed. The case has been handed over to federal investigators. The Islamic State terrorist group, also known as ISIS, took responsibility for the attack with no proof. They alleged the attacker targeted Christians and acted to, quote, avenge Muslims in Palestine and everywhere. Officials say they believe the attacker acted on radical Islamic convictions, but they're still investigating if he's a member of the Islamic State.
For ISIS to claim responsibility is a bit duplicitous because, of course, ISIS interacts with a lot of these types of individuals. Very few of them move to action. And some of the people who move to action will have never had any sort of interaction with ISIS ideology.
The 26-year-old had applied for asylum in Germany in the past. Police now comb through trash at the refugee housing complex where he used to live. Since the attack, far-right groups in Germany have used it to push for stricter immigration policies and stronger deportation rules ahead of elections next month. On Sunday, they were met with counter-protesters who clashed with police.
It will put a lot of oxygen into this discourse in Germany, for sure.
Division, debate, now playing out alongside grief. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Edmonton.
The head of the controversial messaging platform Telegram has been detained in France. Investigators are looking into allegations that Telegram is a haven for fraud, drug trafficking, terrorism, and more. Lisa Sheng has the latest.
Founder and CEO Pavel Durov has defended his messaging platform Telegram for years.
Do you sleep well at night knowing terrorists use your platform?
And our right for privacy is more important than our fear of bad things happening, like terrorism.
Telegram did eventually ban terrorist activity, but its staunch refusal to cooperate with law enforcement led to the Russian-born billionaire's arrest late Saturday upon landing in a private jet near Paris. According to reports, his detention is related to an investigation into the lack of content moderation on the app and its role in enabling criminal activity, including child sex abuse material, cyber scams, and organized crime. In a statement, Telegram said it abides by EU laws and its moderation is within industry standards and constantly improving.
What is different with Telegram is that it's also a marketplace.
This journalist has used the platform in his investigations and says it doesn't operate like the others. It can be completely anonymous and has become an easy access version of the dark web.
That there are long-running operations that actually sell drugs, that sell child pornography via this platform. And we have not seen actually the platform take significant measures to curtail on these.
Since Russia's invasion on Ukraine, it has also become the main source of content from both sides of the war, though both governments heavily use it to espouse their politics. And now, Durov's arrest, also used by Russia.
The arrest of Pavel Durov means that there is no freedom of speech, that the freedom of speech in Europe is dead.
That sentiment echoed by ex-owner Elon Musk, who posted the details of Durov's arrest, sarcastically captioning it, "Check out this ad for the First Amendment." A long-standing debate resurfacing, where one draws the line when it comes to freedom of speech. Lisa Sheng, CBC News, Toronto.
We are just days away from the start of the Paris Paralympics, and today the torch relay entered the channel beneath the English Channel. The flame is making its way to France after being lit yesterday in England. More than 4,000 athletes will compete in the Paralympics in well over 500 events. CBC is your home for the Paris Paralympics, beginning with Wednesday's opening ceremony. And a former Blue Jay is set to make MLB history on Monday. Jansen will become the first player in Majors history to play for two teams in one game. The Jays were taking on the Red Sox on June 26 at Fenway Park when the game was postponed due to the rain. At the time the game was halted, Jansen was at bat for the Jays, but a day later, Jansen was traded from the Jays to the Red Sox. On Monday, the game will resume with Jansen catching for Boston, while the Blue Jays will send in a pinch hitter to replace him. Sophia is back now with our extended forecast, and there's some steamy conditions coming up.
Talia, thank you. Yes, it's oppressive heat. In fact, for anybody, especially if you're susceptible to heat-related illness, here's a snapshot of the feels like values for Monday, for example. 43 for the feels like with that humidity in places like Thunder Bay, nearly 40 in Windsor and 35 in the nation's capital region. It continues for Tuesday with a feels like into the low 40s for multiple regions into southwestern Ontario and 39 in Cottage Country. It's a great week if you have summer vacation to be dockside. The heat continues along with the humidity for Wednesday. It's this upper level high pressure system that's really blocking all this Gulf moisture and allowing it to pool over top of us. Won't be until Tuesday into Wednesday when this cold front sags south and finally wrings out the atmosphere. But until then, summer is firmly holding on. Forget the leggings and the sweaters as you head back to school. It's going to be shorts and t-shirt weather. It's southerly heat right into Labor Day weekend. But for the first half of the work week, it is coupled with all of this Gulf moisture along with a really high UV. You want to be careful if you are outside for any prolonged periods of time. It is a great week, though, to be dockside, as we mentioned, or poolside or patio side. Here's a look at how that active weather can play out midweek. As we mentioned earlier in the show, into early Wednesday, some heavy rain coming in from the Minnesota region. It'll be heavy rain, especially north and east of the city. Could be coupled with some storms, especially midday along that 401 corridor. Those storms will officially bring you down a little closer to seasonal. I still hold steadfast in the fact that this is one of the best weeks of summer vacation. Look at this 7-day forecast. It is glorious. Tons of sunshine, especially the back half of the week where that feels like value is a little closer to the temperature. Enjoy all the extra sunshine this upcoming work week, especially if you're saying sayonara to summer with any of the big festivities like going to the X. Remember, feels like 34 for Monday and 37 for Tuesday. Talia.
Thanks, Sophia. And that's our show for you tonight. But before we go, we want to bring you to the first ever Pups in the Park event downtown Toronto this weekend.
We've seen all kinds of dogs here today, all sizes, all breeds, and it's just been a really fun day. We've probably had about 1,000 people pass through with their dogs. It's fun to see everybody playing together, wagging their tails, and just having a great time.
The two-day event, in partnership with the Toronto Downtown West BIA and Doggy Fest Toronto, coincides with National Dog Day, which is happening tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Good night.